And good afternoon, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. My name is Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining me today. A lot to talk about today. We are going to get into the Buffalo Sabres 2024-2025 season preview. Long suffering fan base out there in Western New York, but looking forward to taking a dive into their roster and see what they have in store for us here for this coming season. Uh, Before we do that, though, we do have a bit of news, some local and some out in Edmonton. Of course, your Western Conference champion, Edmonton Oilers, making some news yesterday. If you're looking for a reason to hate the Oilers, yeah, I think you might have one. So they do hire Stan Bowman for their general manager role. Stan was, of course, part of that 2010 Chicago Blackhawks team, was suspended from the league for his involvement or lack thereof in that whole situation out there with the Blackhawks and some really nasty stuff. That also cost Joel Quenneville a few years out of the league, too. A lot of reporting on it. Again, I'm not going to get too much into this. I'm going to leave a link after this video down below to the hockey guy. He had a really good video on this yesterday, I believe. So if you want to dive into more of the details on that, Shannon does a great job covering that. Just he was spot on with what he had to say about it. Um, yeah, I just think it's a not hire. Weird. I thought there were a lot of other options out there. I mean, for a team so close to a Stanley Cup to hire a guy with this kind of baggage, not wonderful. But like I said, I'll leave that link down below if you want to go check out the hockey guy and see what he had to say about it yesterday. I'll do that for you all. So here in Portland, some exciting news yesterday for the Maine Mariners. We have a new owner, Dexter Payne, purchasing the Maine Mariners. He is from New Hampshire. He's a longtime fan of the old Maine Mariners. And, from everything we've read and hearing, it sounds like he really wants to invest more in the city of Portland. He wants to grow the hockey footprint in the community. This is really a fantastic new owner, fantastic news for the team. I do think it's going to create more stability for them, which I think they were already a fairly stable organization. And I think that the prior owners did a good job of bringing hockey back into the community. I think now Dexter Payne should be able to take it that next step forward. This should lead to some really good, solid longevity, I think, for professional hockey in Portland. So, again, as a Southern Maine resident and as a big hockey fan, I'm really excited for this, excited to see what Mr. Payne has in store for the team and kind of the outreach into the community should be a lot of fun to watch. So, congrats to the Mariners, congrats to Dexter Payne for this acquisition. Uh, News breaking today as well: the Maine Mariners do sign another forward today, Jacob Hudson, 23-year-old from Nova Scotia. Did play 13 games last year in the ECHL for the South Carolina Stingrays, where he had 6 goals, 3 assists for 9 points. So another young, exciting forward to add to the group. And just welcome to Portland, Jacob. Will be fun to watch you this season. So we are going to dive in now to the Buffalo Sabres. We'll start by talking about returning head coach Lindy Ruff, returning back to Western New York after having coached there for a number of seasons. But he has 23 seasons under his belt as a head coach, 1,774 games coach. He's 864 wins, 679 losses, 78 ties, and 153 overtime losses. That brings him to a 487 winning percentage. And he does have one Jack Adams award under his belt. So this will be kind of interesting to see him come back. He's had those few years there in New Jersey. We all remember a couple years ago the Fire Lindy chants after, what was it, a game and a half, 2 games there when they were struggling before they went on that really incredible run and got to the playoffs. Last year, obviously, rough year for the team and for New Jersey. He's let go. Um, so kind of a homecoming. I don't think it's a bad hire. I think that's probably, I would imagine, his last stop. A good way to wrap up his career. But he'll bring, I think, some different accountability to the team, a different voice, and we'll see how it goes. As for salary cap for the team, they do have 23 or 22 of the 23 contracts signed for their NHL club, but they do have six more spots. They have 44 contracts out of 50 signed for the whole organization. But they right now, according to Puckpedia, have right around 8.5 million under the cap. So they do have some room to move and make some trades down the road. So they've got some nice cap flexibility in front of them. They did have a first round pick this year, 14th overall, Konsta Helenas, center out of Finland. Young, I believe he's 18, so probably be a little while before you should expect to see him in Buffalo. But all accounts, I think a real solid pick there at 14. This first round, after the first couple players, kind of picks kind of 4 to 15 were kind of all in that same category. So I think this is probably a really good value pick for Buffalo. Before we look ahead, we do have to look behind a little bit and look at the 23-24 season for Buffalo. They do go 39, 37, and 6. Uh, that leaves them with 84 points, sixth in the Atlantic Division. Of course, they missed the playoffs again. They were 7 points off of that final wildcard spot. So this is now 13 seasons in a row for this fan base, for this team missing the playoffs. They last appeared in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2011, lost to Philadelphia in the first round there in 7 games. Their last playoff win, you have to go all the way back to 2007, where they beat the New York Rangers in the second round, 4 games to 2, before losing out to Ottawa in the conference finals, 4 games to 1. So it's been a little while. Just feel so bad for that fan base. I really, truly, genuinely do. That's a long time to go for any sports team. Just to, when you have half the team or half the league that makes the playoffs every year, you think you just get lucky one year that a puck would bounce your way and you get in. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But as you start to look at their team stats from last year, their goals for, they were at a 2.98, which is good for 23rd in the league. Goals against 2.96, which was 11th in the league. So kind of an even across the board. I think they were +1 in goal differential for the season. Power play, not good, not good. They were 29th in the league, 16.6%. Their penalty kill was at a 79.8, good for 13th in the league. Face-off percentage, not good either. 32nd. Guess what? There's 32 teams in the league. They were dead last at the face-off dot at a 45.02%. Just awful. And then block shots, they were 27th in the league. They had just under 1,300 shots, block shots on the season. And then hits, they were at 1786, good for 21st in the league. So when you just take a real quick look at that, defensively, we know they were good in net last year. They have a good young defensive core. We know, and we'll get into some of their skaters. They had some down years for some of their key guys. So offensively, they really struggled in the faceoff circle. Again, when you're 29th on the PP and you're 32nd dead last in the faceoff circle, and you're right about even on your goals for, goals against, that's going to lead to being, at times competitive because of your goalie and your defense and your goals against, but not going to lead to a lot of playoff success or regular season success. That's kind of what happened. When you look at the core skaters for this team, we know these names: Tage Thompson, uh, JJ Peterka, Alex Tuck, Dylan Cousins, Rasmus Dahlin, all really core, pieces to this team. Thompson did have a bit of a down year last year through 71 games. He had 29 goals for 29 assists, 56 total points. Yeah, down here, lowest goal total since he's been a full-time player. So kind of expect a potential bounce back for him. JJ Peterka did play 82 games, 28 goals, 22 assists for 50 points. Alex Tuck, 75 games played, had 22 goals, 37 assists for 59 points. Dylan Cousins, also 79 games played for him, 18 goals, 29 assists for 47 points. And then Rasmus Dahlin, their big defenseman, 81 games played. He had 20 goals, 39 assists for 59 points. For Paterka, 22 years old, he's entering his third season as a full-time player. Went from 12 goals to 28 year to year. I kind of think he's kind of beginning to blossom as a player. I think there's more ceiling for him, so he'll be exciting to watch. Talking Cousins, they're both, productions for both of those guys dropped over year. So along with Thompson, I'll be curious to see if these guys can kind of get it back a little bit. I think the 70-point mark for both Tuck and Cousins should be very doable. And then Dowling, this was clearly his best goal scoring year. Keep in mind he's a defenseman, so 20 goals out of a D position is really good. He's just becoming a star defenseman in this league, and I think there's more room for him to grow. Moving on to goaltending, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen played 54 games, had a record of 27, 22, and 4, 2.57 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. So really an excellent year out of UPL. Did sign a new contract yesterday, 5 years at 4.75 per. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. You have the young star, young goalie Devin Levi, played 23 games last year, a 10, 8, and 2 record, 3.10 goals against, and an 899 save percentage. Um, so a little bit of a rough start for him. He did go down to the American League for a good bit last season. And then they do bring in James Reimer this year, leave out of Detroit last year, played 25 games, was 11, 8, and 2, with 3.11 goals against, and a 904 save percentage. So some movement there. We'll talk a little bit more about goalies here in just a minute. Some of the additions and subtractions, not a super busy, free agency for the Sabres, but they did make a couple of moves, bring in Sam Lafferty forward, bring in Jason Zucker uh, forward there. I think he had been in Arizona a year ago. Defenseman Dennis Gilbert comes in. Uh, Forward Nicholas Avi-Kubel. Of course, we just mentioned goalie James Reimer comes in, and Ryan McLeod forward comes in as well. As far as departures, Eric Robinson is gone. Goalie Eric Comrie, Tyson Jost, forward Jeff Skinner goes off to Edmonton. They also lost Victor Olofsson, and Matthew Savoy also moves on that trade that was made with Edmonton here just a little while ago. So, again, I think Skinner's probably the biggest name in terms of potential for this year. I'll see how he does in Edmonton. I think Zucker is someone that can fill a good veteran role for this club. But looking at just kind of my projections, my predictions for this team going into the season, going back to last season, I felt that Buffalo, this Buffalo team was ready to emerge out of that bottom mix of the Atlantic teams, fighting for that wild card spot. And while they only finished 7 points out, it never really felt like they were a legit contender for the playoffs. But there's a lot to like about the construction of this roster, starting with their forward group. You have about 5 to 6 forwards with 20 goal potential, and a couple of them easily have 30 plus goal potential. We know that Thompson was a 40 goal guy not that long ago. There's a good mix of players entering their prime years with some veteran depth like Zucker, like Lafferty. I do expect some bounce back numbers for Thompson and for Cousins in particular, and I think they could be a fun offense to watch this season. Defensively, they have a ton of youth. You have this emerging star in Rasmus Dahlin. They go with Owen Power, Owen Byram, who they picked up from Colorado. You mix in a little Henry Yokihara. You mix in some Connor Clifton, who, despite his size, does play a physical game. You might just have the makings of a solid decor. Now, we know that defensive players can take a bit longer to develop their games. So I do believe some patience will be needed in order for this group to reach their full potential. Now, look at me. I know I'm asking Buffalo fans to be patient. Um, Sorry, the most long-suffering fan base in the NHL, and I'm saying be patient. But with this defensive group, I think if you can be a little bit patient, give them some time. There's a ton of potential in this decor. Give them that time. I do think you have the right pieces in place. Yesterday's extension with UPL, starting goaltender, is a clear signal that the team believes in his game, and feels he can be a long-term starter for them. We know there's excitement around Devin Levi, but he may need some more seasoning down in the AHL before he's ready. Now, I did try to look this up. I don't believe he has to clear waivers to go back to the American League next year. I tried to find some details on that. If I'm wrong on that, anybody watching, please let me know. But I do think with Reimer in there, he can be the backup. And I don't think they have to have Levi clear waivers to go back to Rochester. But really, with Levi, the last thing you want to do is throw a young goaltender to the wolves too quickly. And seeing his numbers last year, it didn't really look like he was ready to go. So having UPL and having James Reimer in the fold does allow the Sabres to give Levi that time to grow his game organically. Very, very smart move, I think, on Buffalo's part. So all that to say, I don't know if the Sabres are a playoff team or not this year. As I did last season, I like a lot of their roster construction, and on paper, I believe their wildcard chances are just as good as Pittsburgh, as Washington, Detroit, the New York Islanders. There's going to be a lot of teams battling for that space. I really don't see any movement in the top four in the Atlantic. I do think those, Boston, Florida, Toronto, Tampa are all going to stay right there in the top four in some way, shape, or fashion. So I don't see Buffalo having that chance to move up to the top three in the Atlantic Division. So I really do think their hopes really hinge on that wild card and on what happens kind of in the middle of the Metro Division. You may have Detroit in the Atlantic battling, but you're going to have, like some of those teams, Pittsburgh, Washington, the Islanders, all kind of in that mix. So um, you just gotta think that after 13 seasons, this team is bound to have a year where some pucks are going to bounce the right way for them. Uh, while they haven't made I haven't made my full season projections yet, my predictions, but I kind of putting Sabres in that dark horse playoff kind of spot here right now. I just think a playoff appearance would go a long ways for this team, a long ways for this fan base. Even as a Bruins fan, I'm cheering for them. It would be great to see them get back to the playoffs. But yeah, I kind of have them in that dark horse category. I've got the Aragon up here as the riding his horse in. I do think that uh, there's a shot for this team this year as a dark horse contender. I know Buffalo fans are going to roll their eyes and say, "Ben, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do this to us." We get excited every year and we get burned every single season. Um, and I thought fully when I was looking at this preview, I thought for sure I have them just way out of the playoffs. Like there's no chance this team is going to be a playoff team. But you look at the forward group. Kinda like the forward group. I like their youth. You look at the defensive group, especially getting Byram from Colorado to go along with, Dahlin and Power, it's like, long term, you like that. You look at UPL's numbers, solid last year. You have Devin Levi, who young and upcoming, goalie. Lindy Ruff, I think, will be fine as a bench boss. You got over 8,000,000 in cap space. There's no reason on paper this team shouldn't be in that mix and battling for a wild card spot. So, we will see how it goes for them. Um, Soft spot in my heart for Western New York. New York. My kid sister lives out in that Buffalo area, so um, again, kind of just hoping to see them, push for the playoffs this year. We'll see how it goes, but guys, as always, thank you so much for listening and for your continued support. The channel's growing every day and every week here. Really love to see that. If you do like what you're hearing, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And until next time, be kind, show love, and God bless.